is Real Kyper and Bourne on Sportsnet 590 The Fan.
One win in the regular season doesn't make a season. One Stanley Cup playoff win doesn't lead you to a championship. But man, oh man, are the Toronto Maple Leafs out of the gate early in fine fashion. Nick Kypreos, Justin Bourne, Derek Brandeo, Jennifer Rolnick, and producer Sammy McKee here for the next 2 hours to break it all down. Game one, the Toronto Maple Leafs dominant, blow out the Tampa Bay Lightning in game one. We're glad you're along for the ride wherever you are, live streaming on our YouTube Sportsnet channel, downloading our podcast, or listening on Sportsnet 590 The Fan. Glad you're aboard.
Hey, I'm glad I'm aboard too.
And Bourne and Justin.
Yeah, bud.
Did you call for that? Or was that Sammy's call? I know Derek had 5-2, I believe.
Yeah, I had 2-1.
You had 2-1?
I had 5-4 in overtime. So
much less stressful.
So where are we in 24 hours when it just strictly comes to the vibe? I got a nervous one out of Sammy.
Today?
24 hours ago.
Oh, yeah.
I got a very nervous one. And yes, like I said, one Stanley Cup playoff win doesn't lead you to Lord Stanley himself. But today, 24 hours, I'll go to you, Sammy, to start us off here. Relieved or just cautiously optimistic a lot more now?
happy that happened. I will say that I am very happy that that game happened. Like you said, one win doesn't mean everything, but I also don't necessarily like the other side of the internet and non-Leaf fans being like, it's only one game. How can you? Every team gets excited when every fan of every team gets excited when their team wins a Stanley Cup playoff game. Yeah. So quit with the gatekeeping on that one, first of all. Second of all, that was just such a you-know-what kicking that does let you dream a little bit, seeing them play the way they played last night. We talked about 82 regular season games on this show, boys, and they've never played better than they did last night in a game that we have talked about on the radio. So I think you can dream a little bit, but it's one game, and you can prepare for a wild performance from the Lightning coming up here. They're going to be shot out of a cannon, but yeah, I'm pretty happy today, fellas. Can't lie.
When we look at the last three games they've played, all three of them have been dominated by a team. It was supposed to level off last night, wasn't it? Like a month ago, the Leafs kicked their ass, and then the Tampa Bay kicked their ass, and now the Leafs are back kicking their ass again. This will level off, won't it, Justin?
Yeah, I expect we're going to see a game where both teams are going to bring it at some point. I got to tell you, if you're a Leafs fan or a member of the Leafs staff or whatever, what a weird experience last night and today was, just because how often does everything go to plan in a hockey game? Like, I understand that there were some things early in the game that maybe weren't drawn up, and we'll get to Clifford and that, but like, I went through there. I wrote an article for Sportsnet.ca today. I mean, who didn't you like on the Leafs last night? Special teams, goaltending, pick a player. I mean, the coaching, whatever you.
Yeah.
It worked.
Yeah.
I'm stunned to be sitting here today and going, you know, it worked. All of it. Stunned.
Didn't love Clifford.
Well, it wasn't 2 minutes
but
in. 2 minutes in,
yeah.
Brody gets beat to the net. I think it was Hagel.
Yep.
And pulls him down. Kill that one off. But the stunning one was Clifford.
Yeah.
And just to update you, he had his hearing, I believe, about an hour or so roughly ago.
Okay.
I think all day long it's a one-game suspension. If you want any comparables at all out there, go to Alex Killorn's hit against Josh Bailey, I think 2 years ago in the bubble.
Okay.
Similar hit. I think regardless of how early it was in the game, I don't think it will be sufficient enough to say that he missed the majority of game one. Therefore, that is equal to a one-game suspension. But listen, I'm just telling you how I feel. It's not based on any inside information.
Yeah, you know, my thoughts are, I'm thinking back to Connor McDavid on Adrian Kempe earlier in the season. He paced him from behind. I thought it should have been a suspension. He didn't get suspended. This, to me, is that play again. Gets a 5, misses 53 minutes of the hockey game or whatever. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't get suspended, but either way, if it's one game, no games.
But it was far from the perfect start for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Right.
Yeah, I would say up until the moment that the hit happened and the kill happened, I'd say it was the opposite of a good start. I would say it was a very shaky start.
Well, I thought it was representative of the crowd and the energy. Like the Leafs felt like, they could skate and they got after it, but anytime they handled the puck, I thought it was like, okay, get it going forward. They their strengths are poise and dangly and, doing all those nasty things with the puck. I thought they were really rough with the puck in the article I wrote today. I highlighted a few instances of that. And that's why, and, I guess I'll just dive in on it. That's why the PK to me was perfect for them in that moment, because they were able to skate and pursue, and the pressure switched to Tampa, right? They get that power play. Tampa was supposed to score. You got a 5 in the first 10 minutes. It just changed the tone of everything, and the Leafs were able to pursue, use their feet. They didn't have to handle the puck, got the jitters out.
Just to kind of put a little bit of a bow on Killorn, we had a great conversation, I thought, yesterday about the change of tone out of Sheldon when it came to maybe the motivation behind talking about a violent series and why Clifford over Spezza, and it's a different look. And you know me, I mean, I'm all day long about fourth liners, but I'm not all day long about fourth liners who make stupid decisions.
Not the first one he's made this year either.
And that's another thing as well, is that's probably in the back half of the season, maybe his third dumb penalty.
Yeah.
The one that stands out to me the most was a pretty good Nashville game where he took a penalty that maybe decided the game. But my question is, with all that talk about a violent series, did you kind of set him up to fail? And you think he'd be smart enough, he'd be experienced enough. Daryl Sutter, LA, won a championship. To go out and do what you did and set your team back for 5 minutes, it's just, to me, it's just an unacceptable act.
Yeah.
This time of year.
What do you think about the idea that the crowd spurred him on there? Because a moment before that, he throws a nothing hit on maybe Jan Ruda, and the crowd's out of their feet. And I honestly, I feel like the adrenaline, like he just, you want to do it again. You want to get people going. It felt like the moment the crowd had significant impact on his decision-making there.
Sammy, you think so?
It's an interesting point to make that, like, it's a pretty high-level game out there, and you're excited, and guys are cheering for you. There's that crowd, like we talked about. We'll get Keith's thoughts on the crowd last night. But I think there's something to that the crowd's cheering, your wires cross a little bit, you want to make an impact. Your coach is talking about violence before the series. You're out there for violence,
and
you commit some violence.
Listen, he's not. It's not Bunting. It's not Engvall, and it's not Mikheyev. It is a guy that's played 700, 800 games, 750, 800 games. He's had a championship. He's had almost 70 playoff career games. Where do you get off telling me, well, the crowd made me do it?
Oh yeah, no, you don't. But it has dropped off for him. He's been in the American League. He hasn't felt those moments. It's been the pandemic. I just could see how it could get the best of him in that moment. But you're right. Your job is to control that. You're only going to play 8 minutes, make good decisions in those 8. Why don't we go to Sheldon, start with that crowd?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We had a lot of guys that were really good today. Our team played really well. Our crowd was unbelievable tonight. I thought the crowd was the first star of the game, despite we had a lot of guys that were good, and I thought that they carried us through that kill. The players played hard. They got life, and we got some chances, and just the way that our crowd responded and then really didn't let up for the rest of the game from there. I was asked questions down the stretch of the regular season how important home ice was, and I felt that it would be important. I didn't feel it would be that important. It's my first game coaching the Leafs with a full building here, and I certainly felt it, but even talking to some others that have been in the building and have been through this, our crowd is you can feel the love for this team and the excitement for this team. And I thought they were outstanding tonight, and our team just didn't look back.
Kiefer's juiced, eh?
Yeah. You can tell when he walked to the podium, just the look on his face, that he was ready to talk about the game. Because I've listened to a lot of post game from Sheldon Keefe, and you can tell when there's nights when he's not ready to talk, and there's nights when he's ready to talk.
Sammy goes to me before the show that he had to walk with his waist out to hide the pants tent. He was walking up there. he was fired up.
It's like he gave birth.
Oh, yeah. So I wasn't there last night. I'm going on Wednesday night with Sportsnet 590 and we'll have it. Actually, it's on City News 680, so we'll have the coverage. But I was taken aback last night, even on TV, by that crowd. There's been some great crowds at Scotiabank Arena.
Aren't they supposed to be a Bay Street suit crowd eating sushi? So much for that.
Don't get me wrong. Like, there's been good crowds at Scotiabank Arena. I've been part of great crowds, but that was another level. And I don't necessarily know I guess it's been a long time, the COVID restrictions, first playoff game with fans in a lot of years, but they were a major factor. I don't think Keefe is exaggerating how much that kill was unbelievable.
The energy that kill picked up, and for me, that was the game right there.
Yeah.
Because it created an energy. And it's one thing to not score on any power play, but it's another thing when the best scoring opportunities come from the team that's killing and not on a power play. And every time there was a turnover, and I think, even watching a guy like Liljegren now have the confidence shorthanded to not ice the puck, but looking for someone. Look for a breaking Marner or a breaking Mikheyev or breaking Kerfoot now. How dangerous right now. Like, Tampa Bay's momentum may come off the fact that they didn't give up a shorthanded goal. Forget about a power play goal.
Yeah. And you know what? It was just like the Leafs' biggest strength is that offense and the go-go-go-ness. You know, asking them to score against Tampa Bay at even strength in that first period might have been a lot, but it gave them a success to build on, right? That was something they could feel good about, that they had accomplished and go, things are going in the right direction for us here. Plus, you're going to get a call. And the second that power play is over for Tampa, sure enough, they get a pretty dicey call. Maybe it depends how you feel about that call on Sergachev, on Kucherov. But yeah, it was generous to the Leafs, and I think you could feel that was going to come for them. Yeah. You know, now you're 12 minutes in, and Matthews has barely played, and Marner's rolling. Whew.
The other thing that just from an overall sense is that Tampa Bay's energy is one that I don't know if you want to go back to a month ago when they struggled to having a great finish to the season to really looking a lot like you did a month ago. Whereas it's pretty clear that they're going to have a tough time matching the energy of the Leafs. And that's not to say that Tampa Bay is going to lose this series, but it comes a lot natural to the Leafs now than it is. To me, Tampa's got to find a way now to manufacture energy. They looked, again, slow. Did they not?
That was the difference in the game. They looked slow to me. Toronto looked like Alaskan sled dogs that needed to be reined in. Like, whoa.
The one play that stood out to me, and it wasn't even a goal, but where they looked as Kerfoot came from the blue line, dumped it over, it hit the backboards, and he beat everybody to the puck and got a scoring chance. And it's just like
he's just Wayne Gretzky in playoffs.
Yeah, he just flies. I'm glad you said that, Kyper, because if there's one thing after game one that gives me hope that this will be a good series for the Leafs, is if they can keep that pace up. It looks like it could be a problem for the Lightning.
The Leafs could still lose this, and they could lose it because they've made bad decisions or they're caught pinching, but it won't be because of lack of energy.
No.
It will be because of poor decisions or just an overall maybe nervousness like they've had in the past, but they will not be out-energized in this series.
No, I agree.
And as much as you romantic thoughts of having 3 Stanley Cups in a row, we've been there as athletes. There's some times when you need to dig down deep.
Find some
and
other gear.
There's still nothing there.
Yeah.
And that's what I saw last night. A team that needed to dig down and find something, and there was nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Do we go back to a team now it's going to be talked about that they've been through a lot? Parades, boat parades, White House trips, shortened summers,
or is it a game?
That to me looked like a team that was searching for motivation last night and couldn't find it.
You know, the thing that's going to be interesting for this Leafs team is bad things are going to happen. They're going to fall behind in a game, lose a game. They're going to give up goals. You know, Tampa Bay's claim, and John Cooper said this before game 1 against the Leafs, if we lose this game, you know what's going to happen? We're going to come right back. So looking back at this Tampa Bay team's 2 Stanley Cups, they lost the first game in their series 3 separate times. They've lost 13 games over those years. You know how many times they lost back-to-back?
Yeah.
0. They haven't lost a back-to-back game.
Vasilevsky has not lost
a
back-to-back game in years.
2 years in the playoffs. So when you come out to play this next game, they're coming off those game 1 losses in previous seasons. They're winning 3-2, 2-1, 4-3. They're finding ways past.
Until they don't.
No, you're right.
Until they don't. Until they do lose 2 in a row.
I'm saying that they have the confidence that they can find it because they've done it. The Leafs are going to have to find it when they give up the first goal. And that's for down the road, not for last night's analysis, but they're going to have to find that.
All right. Do we go? You want to go Matthews and Marner, or do you want to stay on Tampa Bay because it could lend towards how John Cooper feels based on what you just said?
I'll let you make that call.
All right. Let's go to John Cooper here on his assessment after game 1 loss.
I'm not so sure the Maple Leafs had to play particularly well to beat us tonight. So it was when you've got to win 4, you don't want to give teams any freebies, and we probably gave them a little bit of a freebie tonight. So it was hard to, I don't know, I think it's hard to judge either team tonight.
A freebie.
Yeah, I like John Cooper for a lot of different reasons, but I don't like the disrespect in that comment for the Toronto Maple Leafs.
I was dying to hear how you felt about that comment.
Yeah. I think at some point you can say all of that, but the usual tagline is, but let's give the Toronto Maple Leafs some credit.
It was just,
there was none of that at all.
No, he just said we just handed him one tonight.
And that, to me, if I'm a Leaf, that just pours a little gasoline on my fire.
I agree. I agree that is ammo for the Leafs to say, you know, he doesn't think that, you know, it's about us. He thinks it's about them. I understand what Cooper's doing. He says we've taken everyone's best punch for years, and we believe we can handle their best punch, so we don't need to show them respect. It's about us in here, and if we play our best, we'll find it.
I love listening to him talk. I really do.
Yeah.
He really is an artist of working with the media. Like the stuff he was saying after the game, we got another clip of him that we'll play later on, but he's just really, really good at saying the right things in the right time. And maybe you don't think that's the right thing. Maybe he's trying to...
I agree with Kyper. I don't think it was the right thing.
Maybe he's trying to motivate his team backhandedly, saying that, you know, we sucked. That's the only reason they beat us. You guys got to play better. But maybe, I don't know. I love listening to him talk, Cooper.
Yeah.
Nobody knows his team better than he does.
Yeah.
And I'm sure even a month ago when they went through that horrible stretch, there was times when he wanted to light them up, but probably didn't.
Yeah.
Because you can only go to the well so many times.
And like when he's showing them video today, he's not going to be going, oh, look at them. They're overwhelming us. He's saying, you know, like Cooch, like, you know what to do here. You need to make that play. Like it's about them for him. I understand why he wants to put the focus for his guys back on their own performance. But yeah, you got to hand it to the Leafs. The Leafs were just pumping last night.
They were. In about 20, 25 minutes, Brad May will be joining us. We got to get into a few things because we all know what he would do.
I'd fight my mom to win another Stanley Cup.
One more time.
I'd fight my mom to win another Stanley Cup.
Did the Leafs fight any moms last night?
Is Jan Ruda have children?
Hey.
Maybe, because he wore a couple of Morgan Riley lefts.
All right, before we get into the physicality, do you want to just touch on star players showing up this time of year.
That's it. I mean, that's it. The conclusion for us, I think, and I shouldn't put words in your mouth, but the Kyle Clifford penalty came at the right time for the Leafs, and that turned the game. But how it turned the game is it allowed Mitch Marner to handle the puck, find his game. He was so good on that penalty kill, and then was just unbelievable throughout that hockey game last night. Austin Matthews bombs a couple in the net, and all of a sudden,
how do you know?
They're feeling good.
How do you not know Matthews
is going to shoot that on the 5-on-3?
It's like watching a sprinter starting 100-yard dash. Like, where he's coming, you know what direction he's coming, and you know what.
I was actually surprised Vasilevsky wasn't better. Like, that was a short side slapper.
And Sportsnet had a great view of him, like the ISO cam on Matthews, and
curls up to the blue.
He literally looked away from the play, like looked into the fans and the glass, then comes back down full speed.
That's the hardest shot competition, where you skate down at it,
leaned on it, and it went in. And the pace with Marner and the smarts he was playing with, and for him, that's the most important thing out of the game for me, is to have those guys look up at the scoreboard and have them have points.
Yeah.
Right away. Right away, they're both on the boards with 3 points. Their confidence is going. They're feeling great. And I have a little stat here about them versus Tampa Bay, if you'll let me.
Let's have it.
That in the last 7 games against the Lightning, Matthews and Marner have combined for 9 goals and 26 points. So this isn't a team that they are particularly afraid of when it comes to scoring. So
that is off the chart numbers.
So I really do think
wow.
I really do think that that's the most important part of the game, is getting them going.
Why don't we hear Keith on Matthews and Marner?
Those guys have scored at such a high level all season. It's a new season here now. You want to get rid of the zeros as quickly as you can. So that's just another thing tonight that just came up our way. Went our way. Austin, huge power play goal for us at a key time, and Mitch's goal. It's a great goal for us at a key time, and it's one that. He hangs onto the puck. I mean, you could go back to last season, and that's the kind of play and the kind of look he got, I don't know how many times in the Montreal series, but a lot. And it didn't go for him. Tonight, it did. So those are really good, positive things for us that will help us going forward for sure. And like I said, we're going to need it because, it's one game. Tampa's going to be a whole lot better. We got to keep getting better as we go through this series.
And to start the series, you have to show the respect for a Kucherov, a Point, a Stamkos, those type of players that have done it for the last couple of years, proven players. Mm-hmm. But if they're not matching the energy of a Marner and a Matthews, and they clearly did not. Like, you're watching Kucherov, I think he was frustrated over an attempt on a cross-ice pass that got picked off by Brody, and then he cross-checks him.
Yeah.
Right, just out of sheer frustration, probably.
Right.
And that, to me, it's just game one, but that's a tired act.
I mentioned this morning on the radio show that you talked about for days now, that they're at the end of a road trip here. What have they been on the road for? 8 days. They've played a couple of games already. And
they weren't sure whether they were coming home or not, or going to Toronto, and still undecided. Boston for Toronto. Not easy.
No, not easy. But boy, they didn't bring it the same way Matthews and Marner did. And, those guys, I just feel like you've been in slumps, I'm sure. My career was a slump, essentially. I remember just when it's not going in for you, the different way you play, and you don't play with that freedom, that arrogance that makes you really good. And I look at how Cole Caulfield turned his game around after Marty St. Louis, and how he started playing with that swagger. Matthews and Marner getting a couple on the board gives them that swagger and gives them the chance to be at their best. And that's it for the Leafs. The whole plan is that their team, their stars, are going to be better than most teams. So getting those guys off the schneid early was huge.
And the other factor here for me, and we talked about this, that Point, how healthy is he?
I don't think he looked good.
How big of a factor can he be? Now, is he a winger because he's not feeling strong enough to play center? To me, him less than at his best this time of year is really bad news for Tampa Bay.
It's a big swing. And you know what? He didn't have the best regular season. He was less than a point per game player for them this year.
-5 on a team that can score like that.
Right. You know, so and last night, was it him with the giveaway to Kempf before Kempf outraced Hedman on the shorthanded goal? I think it was Point. But anyway, he just didn't look great for them. They have switched up the lines. Like they had Hagel playing on the point line there, and they've taken him off that line now. So they put Killorn there looking to get a little bit more support for, I guess, that line. I don't know. But, yeah, he missed some games down the stretch for more than maintenance. So that's a big blow for Tampa Bay if they're not going to get much out of Braden Point.
All right, let's get into the shenanigans, physicalities, whatever you want to describe it. But it led certainly to an interesting finish to the game.
Sure did.
Why don't we talk? Why don't we go to a Kipper's Clipper on the physicalities according to Sheldon Keefe and what he saw?
I thought that the penalties obviously took a lot of wind out of the sails of the game, but I liked how we handled it. Late. I didn't like Cliff's penalty. Cliff said it's not a hit you can make there. But otherwise, I thought we handled it well. I thought we were physical when the game called for it, and we needed to be. I thought we handled their physicality well, both in making plays and keeping the puck moving and not getting rattled by it. And then just standing our ground when, the nonsense starts late in the third there.
I think the part about them standing their ground in the nonsense was key. I sneaky think it was really big that Morgan Riley engaged Patrick Maroon, tried to keep him out of that stuff. And then, Maroon more or less jumps him, gives him the business. Riley hangs in there, and then he goes back at Jan Ruda and decks him one. Like, I think that's a good look for the Leafs, that when those guys try to muck it up on Tampa and become more relevant, that Morgan Riley was a guy who was willing to step up there.
Fines for Pat Maroon, Corey Perry, and Simmons. They're each fined $22.50 for unsportsmanlike conduct. Is that enough for you? You guys okay with that?
I was a little confused as to what all of them did, really, to get a fine.
What they get fined for? I don't know.
So you just you just can't have a fight? Is that what you can't be in a brawl? Like if the rule is there's no brawl, then you get fined for it, I guess. But I just didn't really understand, especially Simmons.
For general troublemakerness. Yeah, Simmons was skating away from that.
Simmons got chased up the ice by two guys, didn't fight either, and then once the brawl started, he got back in.
He didn't engage, which kind of created the energy, first and foremost. Listen, the bottom line is the league's always had an issue. You can go back as far as when I played about message sending. Mm-hmm. And there are rules. They're warned that they don't like it. Now, did it cross the line enough to suspend anybody? Probably not. But, at some point, you could suspend somebody and really send a stern message that when the game's over and you guys want to start this stuff, you run the risk of being suspended, right? And it didn't get to that point.
What did you think, though? What did you think of Maroon and going at Riley and, the way that they chased around, Perry, Deck, and Labushkin? And
I get Simmons, right? If it just dies off of Simmons saying, "Hey, look at the scoreboard. I don't need to go on your terms," right?
It's 5-0 us. We're not doing this.
It's okay.
Yeah.
The issue is, though, like where did it bleed into? And if Simmons does go maroon,
does Morgan Riley's hand have cuts on the knuckles?
Morgan doesn't run the risk of breaking his hand.
Yeah.
Right?
I think if he had known it would lead there, I assume he would not have.
It is what it is, and you want to turn it as much as into a positive as you can. And overall, again, a much better look. We've sat here on a few occasions saying, why didn't the Leafs go in and protect Tavares back in November or January? And, why do they allow that? And why is it so hard for them to stick together and back each other up? Mm-hmm. Like, we're not having that conversation anymore based on what we saw last night. So you're going to find some positives out of it. You want to know what the biggest positive for the Leaf fans might be? that Morgan Riley isn't suspended today.
What would he be suspended for?
Well, how many fights did you see Morgan Riley in last night? I saw 2.
If you get 2 fights and a whistle, is that a suspension?
Yeah.
1.5. I'll say he got jumped by Maroon.
No, there were 2 fights.
Yeah.
He kicked the crap out of Ruta.
Yeah.
And then he fought Maroon.
Yeah, I guess the league would generously call that maybe he obviously didn't get a 5 for that.
Morgan Riley was in no fight, and Maroon was in no fight. Go look at the
Is
game
there no
sheet.
5s?
No 5s.
We should talk about officiating because,
Right?
boy, that was a weird hockey game, wasn't it?
Like, it's been noted that
Yeah.
Scrub the tape of that, please,
there
Kyper.
there were no fights. Morgan Riley was not credited with 1 fight last night.
That's funny.
Ask his hand.
Yeah, that's really funny.
Ask Ruta's face.
Just a scrum, a couple of knuckle face washes. The boys are all right.
Oh,
Maybe
man.
good on the official.
Yeah. Well, that would make up for the heavy
2
whistle
fights.
use throughout the rest of the game. Last night, fun fact about the Toronto Maple Leafs, Mitch Marner played 5 minutes and 30 seconds of 5-on-5 hockey last night. 5:30, which is the second lowest on the team. Austin Matthews played like 7 minutes or something like that because there was no 5-on-5 time. Penalty after penalty. What did you think? Did you like the way it was
I
called?
thought some of the penalties were just awful.
You did, eh?
Yeah, I did.
I thought they tried to
did.
set a standard. Like,
Well, does that go back to maybe giving Sheldon more credit for setting the officials up for something that maybe he manufactured?
yeah. Yeah, it's a good point. You know, I'm reminded of a time a guy wanted to fight me at a bar, and as I'm walking out outside, I didn't want to fight the guy. I said to the bouncer, like, we're going to go fight. Because I was looking for someone to get in there before I had to do anything.
Yeah. And that's because it was your turn to pick up the check?
I don't remember why it was, to be honest. But, like, that was Keefe, right? Like, saying to the bouncers, like, hey, make sure you're in here quick on this. You know, the better it is for the Leafs, the more penalties called, the better it is for them with their great special teams.
Do we have John Cooper on the officiating?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
this was really interesting. Let's go to a Kipper's Clipper on John Cooper.
There was probably a little bit too much made of, I know I heard the word violent was thrown around earlier today, and it's like, come on. And so maybe that gets in guys' ears, and it's like, we keep control of this series in a series that hadn't even started yet. But there were dumb penalties taken both ways. Like, both teams were dumb, and the refs called them, and maybe some they didn't, but it wasn't their fault. They were calling what was laid in front of them. So I think probably both teams are shaking their head a bit about the amount of penalties each team took. But I think to answer your question, there were probably a little heightened awareness with coming into the series.
Yeah, a couple chintzy calls.
Which ones didn't you like?
Labushkin, interference, fight through that.
It's a bit of a pick.
The worst call last night was Sergachev that led to a 5-on-3 where
It was the first penalty.
the first penalty that led to the 5-on-3. After that, it was a Ruta cross check, I think.
To Marner,
which, all right, I'm okay with that one. But it was a one-on-one play that shoved, I think, Kampf down.
Kampf tried to get body position, lost it more or less. Sergachev gave him one of these.
A shove.
Well, yeah, like I'm in front of you playing defense.
That looked
shove.
like maybe a cross check to the official.
We'll take it.
Oh, listen, you take all of it. But overall, as much as it may have affected the flow of the game, that stuff favors, I think, the Leafs.
Yeah. Yeah, the more of this. And I think that's the point Cooper's making, right? He's like, I think I heard someone say violence, like Sheldon.
And the series didn't even start yet.
Both teams were dumb.
Hour.
Yeah. He's right, though. Both teams were dumb. Like, you go through 10 penalties or whatever, you can look at 8 of them and go, there's something there. Like, the refs are trying to say, hey, look, it's not going to be playoff hockey where it's just grind it out.
And Gary Bettman went on record saying that there's more penalties called in the playoffs than there is in the regular season.
6 times the infractions and 1% more penalties called.
I'm kind of stuck in the middle on this, fellas, because I thought it was way too many penalties last night. You know, I think you want some the obvious trips, the obvious hooks, some interference, or whatever called. But at the same time, you do have this brand of hockey that's supposed to be playoff style. It's for the cup. It's more meaningful.
Yeah.
I think a little bit of contact has to be let go a little bit. I'm kind of the middle, though, because I think it does favor the Leafs. Which side do you land on it?
The energy that they got off of their penalty kill, and I know you don't want to tempt fate and keep going there.
Yeah.
But it was the specialty teams that were the difference makers for the Leafs.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, over the past 5 playoff rounds where the Leafs have been eliminated, their penalty kill was like 74% over those years. So, it's been a major issue for them. So, locking it down against the Bolts was a great start. Do we want to hear, Keith, on how it made the game funky and messed up with all the...
Before we get to that, I just wanted to give praise to David Kampf on the kill. Because even before he scored the shorthanded goal, I thought he was really, really good in the center of the ice, just kind of poking pucks at the line, denying entries. That's the reason you sign a guy like that.
Yeah,
You make an unsexy signing that everybody makes fun of, and then you go to the playoffs and it's like, yeah, he's a great penalty killer. He gets the puck out, long, good reads. I mean, you don't really expect him to beat Vasilevsky under the arm on a breakaway, but that was nice bonus.
Honorable mention to William Nylander. Sergachev, I think, pulled him down on an early breakaway.
Yeah,
I think
good speed early.
A real threat. Wasn't really rewarded. But
a good hockey game from him. One of the guys who was going early, like in the first, before the Clifford penalty, you didn't really like the team. I didn't either. Nylander was one of the guys that from the gate seemed to have it. Let's do Keith on the funkiness of the game, because things did get weird.
Well, it's a funky game, right? I mean, there's so much special teams. I don't even know how we're going to process this one, to be honest. Like, there's so many things happening that are not necessarily normal, and we shouldn't expect to be the norm going forward. But I talked about how great the crowd was, and then the other part of it was just our team seemed to be unflappable tonight. The kills that we have early, we get an early kill, no problem. Get a 5-minute major, no problem. We just go out, go to the face-off, get our work done. In fact, turned it into a positive. The chances we were able to generate, the life we were able to generate, and then just all the way through, right? Got a 5-on-3, call a timeout, get organized, go out, shoot in the net.
Shoot it in the net.
Shoot it in the net.
funky.
Yeah, I sure set that clip up. Well, I really got to stop saying the thing they say in the clip. But, it is the word that stood out to me there is unflappable. He thought they were unflappable in that game, and this is a pretty flappable team. And that's where I give Jack Campbell credit, and he's a guy we haven't talked about yet. There's a play there where Muzzin scores, 1:41 left in the first period. 1:18 left in the first period. Ross Colton gets a shot, takes a pretty sneaky wrister far side, and Campbell gets a stop on it. Like, he didn't have to be spectacular, but he was there. He was the good version of Jack. He held on to pucks. I thought that was a good showing from him.
No problem.
This would be a look that Leaf fans could get used to, not needing Jack to stand on his head and spin for wins.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And I thought the decor was excellent in front of him. And I kind of led me to the question I wanted to ask you guys before we get the break. Who stood out to you the most on the decor last night? Because I have a tough time picking one of the guys that I thought was the best. I thought it was a good team effort, but I can't necessarily pick out who was best.
The one thing that stood out for me is that Muzzin didn't stand out in a negative way.
Well, that's right. There's no one you're like, oh.
He kind of looked semi-normal.
He was physical. Like, he took the body, he rubbed guys out, he was block shots.
Pretty good shutdown guy. He was aggressive enough. Didn't go looking for it, but certainly at times got his shots in. I think that's an excellent sign.
Well, and weird too to be sitting here today and go, Kasha was all right, huh? Like,
two helpers.
Muzzin was all right. Kasha was all right. A lot of the guys that we were like, I don't know. The decision for me to not have Hall in and Lilligren and Labushkin were very good. So, again, it's a really strange game to analyze because typically, Kipper, you and I are really good at, if I may say so.
A compliment.
At finding the things that need to be improved. That's, from a coach's angle, what they can work on. It's tough sitting here today because of the way the game was funky.
No problem.
It just... Man, it went better than I could have imagined.
Jake Muzzin his goal at age 33 years and 70 days. He's the oldest Leaf defenseman to score a playoff goal since who? Did you look?
Yeah, I did.
Old roommate of mine in Washington, Sylvain Cote.
Another guy you know pretty well. While we're doing stats here, Leafs open a postseason with a shutout win for the first time since 2001. Who was the goalie?
I didn't look at that one.
It's Cujo.
It's Cujo.
2001. Curtis Joseph had a 36 save.
That's
shutout
a
against Ottawa.
long time ago.
And I will say, the way that Leafs team played in 2001, I'm sure it was a much more spectacular shutout than the one that Campbell had last night. Those teams of my youth were just all goalies.
Yeah.
Cujo and Belfour. That was it.
All right. Good job on the breakdown, boys.
I'd say
And it's
so.
just game one.
Block one. Check.
Block one. Okay, after the break, we got a guy that would do this to his mom to win a Stanley Cup.
I'd fight my mom to win another Stanley Cup.
That was about the best fill in the blank it could have been.
Mayday up next after the break. You're watching and listening to Real Kyper and Bourne.
It's Real Kyper and Bourne on Sportsnet 590 The Fan.
Also on the program in the second hour, Steve Stumpy Thomas. He's familiar with the Tampa Bay Lightning.
He is. Good guest today,
Really good.
as opposed to the other losers we usually get.
And a guy that helped us set the tone for the playoffs all season long.
Yeah.
And what it takes to win this time of year. And this sums it up with just a few words.
I'd fight my mom to win another Stanley Cup.
Let's bring in Mayday. Mayday,
Oh,
we saw a lot of Leafs taking swings at their mom last night, didn't we?
Listen, I was excited watching that game. The energy was palpable. It was a great start. I thought they was, it obviously started poorly for the Leafs with a 5-minute major, but it was unbelievable. Alex Kerfoot with a few odd man rushes on the PK, and they set the tone. And I'm sure we're going to expect a different Tampa Bay Lightning in Game 2, but the Leafs played great.
Can you feel a little bit for Clifford? Here he is. You're hearing all the comments about how this series is going to be somewhat violent, and you want to go out there. Now, he's not a rookie. He's a guy that's been around the block a few times here. But like, how do you explain a guy a few minutes in taking that penalty?
Well, listen, you're really excited, and things happen quickly. I'm sure he'd want to take that one back. Kind of somewhat of a predatory hit, right, on the back shoulder. In the neutral zone, too, where, you're trying to make something happen, but sometimes it's not there for you. And feel bad for him because he's an energy guy, and his teammates love him, and he definitely brings that element. But it hurt their team for 5 minutes. But you know what? I think by them killing off that penalty, it almost inspired their group and certainly the crowd. It was exciting for sure, but I feel bad for him. I'm not exactly sure what or how long he'll get, right? Obviously, there'll be a hearing, but Kyle Clifford is a character guy. He just went a little bit too far across the line.
Yeah, and we haven't played the quote yet, but Sheldon Keefe also really endorsed him. Went to bat for him and said, "This is a guy who's been an important part of what we do." They missed him at the end of the game when there were some shenanigans. Pat Maroon chucking him at Morgan Riley, Perry and Maroon chasing around Wayne Simmons. What did you think of what Tampa Bay tried to make happen when the game was out of touch there?
Listen, they're champions down there. They've been there before. Patrick Maroon, 3 in a row. Corey Perry, years ago he won, but he's been a part of the Stanley Cup, final the last couple of years. These guys, it's all about energy. It's all about, maybe trying to get something. I'll tell you what, though, late in the game, it probably doesn't have the same effect, I wouldn't think, today. However, everybody knows what's going on, and everybody's going to be excited for Game 2, and the energy will be there. And I think for Tampa, they got their clocks cleaned, and Toronto deserved that win. They played awfully well, but expect a different team to come out, maybe a little better execution by the Tampa Bay Lightning. But tell you what, if Marner and Matthews continue to play like that, they're going to be hard to beat.
You would have done the same thing.
Oh, 100% I would have. And here's the thing. I think people, let's not get overzealous. That was like kindergarten, what happened at the end of the game. There was nothing serious about it. Guys playing for their jobs and their teammates. And you know what? I think that's exciting. And it's going to bring a lot of eyeballs into Game 2 and the rest of the series. And I think the NHL was expecting a barn burner type series, and they're going to get it. And I don't think it's going to happen or end in 4 games. That's for sure. You got 2 great teams.
And yes, Tampa Bay was embarrassed after that, and we talk about message sending and what that would mean in 2022 compared to maybe the late 90s when we did it, but it hasn't changed all that much. All I got out of the last few minutes of that hockey game is Tampa Bay's telling the Leafs and the rest of the world, we're not going away quietly here. We're just getting started.
That's exactly what it is. And again, the impact of a fight. Listen, there was a couple stitches maybe. in Tampa's locker room after that game. But really, I don't even know if the energy transfers over to game 2. But one thing I can tell you is there will be players that will either be, understimulated or overstimulated and might take a penalty early in the game, like Clifford did, because they're overstimulated because of what transpired or happened at the end of the game. So it's a matter of coaching right now, and your leaders in the locker room, your veteran players. Tampa's got a lot of them to, inspire their teammates, but also get them to that perfect level of performance. And that's the hardest thing, to get 20 players, in that zone at the same time. That's why, in the game of hockey, it's, teams go on streaks, winning. Sometimes they lose, but it's because they don't have that same energy or that same level of commitment, throughout your lineup.
What did you make of the officiating? Very different from how we tend to think of playoff hockey, right? The old nothing gets called, put the whistles away. 10 penalties last night. Did you think it was excessive?
No, I don't think so. I mean, when I was watching now, could there be fewer penalties? Probably. But at the end of the day, you got two great offensive teams in this series, and penalties are going to hurt. The team that takes the most penalties, unless they, have incredible, 7, 10, 12-day, periods for their penalty killers, whoever takes the most penalties is going to lose this series, I believe.
As far as Cooper and Tampa here, you got a veteran team. Does he go into last night or this morning trying to figure out how hard you're going to push a veteran team or challenge them this early? Or do you expect them to more or less figure it out on their own? Because we are talking about guys that have been around the block a few times.
Well, I bet you, probably some of John Cooper's, his greatest attributes as a coach is understanding when to push and when not to. Mm-hmm. And he's got a team of champions, Stanley Cup winners in that locker room, just getting started, to try to win their third in a row. And, I'm sure they were, focused and ready to go, but, there's going to be a moment, I'm sure, if they get down this series by another game or two, maybe that speech changes, but John Cooper seems very level-headed, and they run, their highs aren't too high, their lows aren't too low, and they just plod through. So, that's what makes great coaches, right? Sometimes it's the moves that you don't make that are most valuable to be a coach. What player you call in, what player do you snap on, who are you motivating today? But motivation shouldn't even be the factor, right? It should be just more about focus and control. And, with that being said, that same conversation has to happen in every locker room. In Toronto's locker room, game 2 is going to get harder. And as the series goes on, certainly against the Stanley Cup champions, that I think Toronto's in a great place, but their level is going to have to rise as well.
Yeah, and because of all the success they've had in the past, it's impossible to sit here and think Toronto has some raging advantage in the series. But one thing that stood out to myself and to Kyper too in our talk earlier is just the Leafs' speed. They looked like the faster team. They had the energy. Tampa either looked slow or not energized, one of those two things. I wonder if there's a way or a place that Tampa could get to in this series where they would say this Maroon, Perry, Belmar line is not quick enough to keep up. Like, would they ever make a roster change, or do you think they'll just stick with this lineup knowing what they've been through in the past, even if Toronto continues to outskate them the way they did in Game 1?
I can tell you this. It's a great question. If Tampa's even considering, changing lineups after that game. Now, listen, there's always players in waiting, ready for their opportunity. But you've built your team. They went through the whole season with those guys. They're not throwing them under the bus yet. I can promise you that. And they're not that slow, and they've been a pretty valuable line for a long time, or certainly the season in Tampa. So I wouldn't think that that's an issue. Obviously, if you get down 2 or 3 games, coaches become desperate, and maybe they have to make a big change. Maybe they play 7 defensemen. It all comes down to injuries too, right? I mean, there are going to be injuries in this series and players not playing at 100%. So those things do happen, but that was a great hockey game. Toronto played at home. If I'm in that locker room in Tampa, Nick, you've been there. you're saying, listen, let's win game 2 if you're Tampa. Let's win game 2, get a split on the road, and home ice advantage is now, nullified, or it's in our favor. So that's what they're saying in Tampa. But the bottom line is you got to, put your money where your mouth is, and you got to go out and perform. And I'd expect a barn burner in game 2, but we'll soon find out.
Mayday, if I'm John Cooper, I'm starting to think that way after Mitch Marner made it 4-0 late in the second period. I'll ask this to you first, Mayday, and then maybe get a comment from JB here. But anyone surprised to see Vasilevsky start the third period here? When we talk about a team that a month ago you're asking yourself, are they tired? Are they running out of gas? And then they go on a nice run to finish the regular season. And then you watch that first game 1 and you're like, I think you're right back to asking that question. Is this a team that's just slowly losing their juice? And if that's the case, why not pull Vasilevsky last night for the third?
Listen, the way they played going into the playoffs, Tampa's been pretty darn good. And they're not going to pull Vasilevsky. If you do that, literally that's the doubt that creeps in. Unless the team was playing so bad in front of them, sometimes the coach will pull a goaltender. But you gotta have your goaltender find it as well. This guy is one of the best, if not the best, in the National Hockey League. So no, you're not pulling him. I do understand the question, and it does make sense. But it's game 1, guys. They've been through it. A lot of teams, young teams, get excited, start reading their own, prints, their own clippings, and get a little ahead of themselves, start thinking about round 2 and all these other things that come into a player's mind. The Tampa Bay Lightning have proven that they've been able to battle winning tough games on the road, at home, and extending series. So I don't think there's any panic in Tampa, but I'll tell you what, if they play like that, for 6 more days, they're going to be out of the first round. So they need to find it. Steven Stamkos, Kucherov, Braden Point, expect their best because they're coming.
How do you manage that then for Toronto? Like, we talked about Tampa and saying, they never get too high, they never get too low. Toronto is the opposite, man. This team has an excuse to feel good about themselves. The next one is Coast City. How do they find that? Is it the coach that has to go in there and convince them that they're not as good as the press clippings? What are the steps that need to happen for the Leafs to find that game 1 level again and again and again?
I think that's why you play 82 games. That's why you travel, you spend time together on the road as teammates, and you try to figure out each other, where the strongest attributes are. And for me, it's all about the team and awareness of where you are. I know when I was a younger player and we got up matter of fact, my second year, we beat the Bruins in the first round. We go in to play against the Montreal Canadiens. We get swept in 4 games. We're done hockey in like 7 or 8 days. And we thought that we were going to go beyond. We're going to beat Montreal. We were off, overconfident. I remember as a young player literally thinking, because I want to say the other series that was being played in 92, 93 was Pittsburgh against the New York Islanders. I just remember thinking during that second round, I can't wait to go play against Mario if they win or go into Long Island. I was actually thinking ahead. We didn't even win a game. And this is where our minds go. And the other part is you get down in a series. Why it's so difficult to come back when you're down is, listen, when you're being ready to be knocked out or you don't have as much confidence, you start thinking about, okay, I got to call U-Haul. I got to move my furniture. I'm going back to the con. And truly, guys, I'm telling you, these guys aren't infallible. These thoughts creep into one's head. And all of a sudden, if you're thinking like that, there's not a chance in the world that you can go out and perform at your best. And that's where I think it's a really fine line. To answer your question, it's about the veteran players. And you don't necessarily have to be a veteran, but you have to be a player that's had experience, whether it's at the midget level, junior level, college level. We're in these situations where you can actually go back to that moment, that Zen-like moment, and regain your focus. And the best teams I played with, you had teammates that actually identified players that weren't 100% focused, and they were able to bring them back into the fold.
You know what was big in our day? Watching certain guys make plans for the World Championships when we're not out of a series yet.
Oh. Hey, and you know what, Nick? I'm telling you, I know exactly what you're talking about. You're talking about your Czech teammates with the Washington Capitals, Michael Bavanka, Peter Bondra, and yes, they would.
Well, I'm not quite the finger pointer right now.
Well, I am. I am. And you know what? And you guys were up in series, and truly, these guys were actually negotiating contracts in the game 6 of series, looking for the contract for the next year, if I remember correctly. The bottom line is, you get players like that. If you're not 100% in, and there's a lot of players, and it doesn't, not so much anymore. But the World Championships had a real big hold on a lot of players.
Yes, it did.
I think it's changed a little bit.
It has.
The landscape of hockey. But 30 years ago, guys, that's where they, got their social capital and playing for their countries. If they weren't going to win, they'd rather go play in the World Championships. And that, you know what, as a general manager or a coach, you got to identify who those people are or were.
Well, and that's, so much of this, the Toronto Maple Leafs, is about the stuff we're talking about here, where it's the mental aspect and the side of things. And I just can't help but wonder, the first game went so perfect. Are there going to be demons? They go down 2-0. We know Tampa can rally, and we know what they can do. They've been through this. Are the Leafs going to have the ability, when things don't go right, to see the big picture, or is it going to be time to, completely fall apart? So I imagine these guys being in their prime age, Brad, I imagine this is the time to kind of figure it out for this core, the Matthews and Marner types, right?
Absolutely. And here's the deal. I'm not a pessimist, so I have to imagine that team in Toronto, they got to defend, obviously. That has been, their Achilles heel, over the last little while or last couple of years. But they've got so much talent. They got to believe in themselves. And I wouldn't go there, because if you're thinking that way, you're not going to be the best you can be. And I'm sure these players are confident. They had great years, a lot of them. And but for the fan base, the Maple Leaf fan base, and being a local, everybody they're already planning the parade route, right? I mean, they have to win 15 more games in 3 different or 4 series, but 3 different series after this one to actually have the parade. How about this one? Focus on game 2. Don't worry about what's going to happen in game 3, and stay focused for, the next 36 hours. And then give yourself an hour or 2 after your win or your loss. You reflect, you enjoy it or not, and then you get yourself focused for the next one. But that's the hardest part, to be able to have your team, 20, 25 players that are going to end up playing, that are going to be, at their peak for 2 straight months. It's difficult. And that's all about the, selection process and who you're, choosing to play on your 3rd and 4th lines and as extra players, or who your star players are. That work has already been done, right, by their scouts and their management. These players are the guys that can make it happen. They got to believe in themselves and keep going.
And most importantly, find those continuous lessons that you learn about yourself in this process, because there's no Stanley Cup presented without numerous hills to climb and battle those moments of adversity. And for us in '94, 2 stand out, of course, the conference final, where we needed Mess and his guarantee to go into New Jersey, and then blowing a 3-1 lead to Vancouver in the final. How about you with your Stanley Cup run? Those moments of adversity which could have made or break you.
Oh, Nick, you just forgive me. I remember your '94 run. I remember watching and cheering you on. But as a player on the Anaheim Ducks, and I got traded to that team at the trade deadline, we had so many, great players, but we had so much adversity to go through. We had injuries. J.S. Giguère didn't even start the playoffs. Our backup, who was very, very good, was Ilya Bryzgalov, stood on his head first 3 games against Minnesota. Arguably, we could have been beaten by the Minnesota Wild in the first round. And we went on to win the Stanley Cup. We won 16 games. We only lost 5. It's a pretty good record to go on to, the only series that went beyond 5 games was against the Detroit Red Wings. And we could have lost that series too, and it took an overtime, heroic effort by Teemu Selanne, or we would have been down in that series against Detroit. So there's so many factors. I got suspended. Pronger got suspended twice. I broke my hand. I had to wear a cast for 6 weeks.
Didn't Pronger step on someone's head?
Hey, no, but I can't. No, he hit Thomas Holmstrom on one, and then he knocked out Dean McCammon in the Stanley Cup final in Ottawa.
It's hard to keep track with him, right?
He was a crazy one, that's for sure. But tell you what, pretty good team to play on when Chris Pronger's on the ice 30 minutes a night, and then you had Scotty Niedermayer behind him or ahead of him. We had a deep team, but the adversity, even as easy as our record looked to win the Stanley Cup, we could have been beaten in 3 of those series. And you can't take anything for granted.
All right, we're running out of time here, but I want to let you know that yesterday we had Randy Carlisle on our show.
Okay.
All right.
Love it.
It was great. Yep. It was great having him on. But all I could think about was a certain game called Touch Randy.
Touch Randy.
What was that?
Do you want me to tell you?
Yes, because I think I screwed it up yesterday.
Yeah, so I get to Anaheim, and we're at a team golf event, and George Peros, and I don't want to throw anybody else under the bus, but Georgie's the highest ranking guy in the National League now with us. Georgie makes up this game of Touch Randy. So Randy doesn't want to be around anybody, and even if you're 10 feet from him, he gives you a snarl. But we played this game where all season, the rest of the year, after to get off the ice, you had to touch Randy. To get on the airplane, you had to touch Randy. And Randy didn't know what was going on, I don't think. But I'll tell you what, pretty crazy when you go out of your way to give him a little tap on the back. Hey, coach, how you doing? Or whatever it was. Hey, do you have anything to say to me today? Or whatever it was. But every player that was involved had to touch Randy every day. And this guy, he must have thought at some point in time, what the heck is going on? But Touch Randy was a real fun game for us.
Today that gets you a visit to HR.
Don't have that at the office, I can tell you that.
Hey, it was awesome. And we laughed. And the craziest part was some guys would forget, so they'd only have like 5 minutes to go before the plane took off. And they'd have to get out of their seat, walk to the front of the plane, and touch Randy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Mayday, always a pleasure having you on our show. You touch our heart every time you're on our show.
Poetic.
Hey, go Leafs, guys. Thanks for having me.
Stanley Cup champion Brad May with the Ducks 2006, 2007.
Kind of reminds me in Super Troopers when they have to get the last meow in.
Touch JB.
Perfect. That is hilarious.
All right, we're going to take a quick break here. Stumpy, Stevie Thomas, another former NHL or former Toronto Maple Leaf, and also former coach in Tampa Bay. Maybe he can give us some insights on John Cooper and what might he be thinking about as he gets ready for Game 2. All right, Stumpy after the break. You're watching and listening Real Kyper and Bourne, Sportsnet 590, The Fan.
Neil, Kyper, and Bourne on Sportsnet 590 The Fan.
Just waiting on Steve Stumpy Thomas, former National Hockey Leaguer. Many remember him as a Toronto Maple Leaf, of course. A couple of those good playoff runs.
Yep.
Many Leafs are hoping for this time around. He's also a guy that's been involved with the Tampa Bay Lightning from 2010 to 2016.
Correct. You got that right. Yeah.
And someone that may know a little bit of maybe what John Cooper's thinking and maybe anticipating in Game 2. First of all, let's bring him in. Steve Stumpy Thomas. How are you, pal?
I'm doing great, Kyper. How are you doing, guys?
I'm good.
Real
you
good.
know, I'm watching and listening to the sounds coming out of the Scotiabank Arena last night, and there just seemed to be a little bit more jam coming out, and it's almost reminiscent of your playoff runs with the Toronto Maple Leafs and just your overall thoughts of the energy last night and knowing that you've experienced that type of energy before.
Yeah, just watching it on TV, it seemed like it was pretty electric in the building. And Kyper, I do actually remember back in the early 2000s, we had a pretty good team in Toronto and, playing in the playoffs in that Battle of Ontario against Ottawa. And it was like the roof was going to pop off the building. And I'm sure being there live in at the building last night, it would have felt the same way. And it's like an extra guy on the ice for you, having your fans react to certain things out there on the ice for you. And it's such a positive for the players.
Obviously a good thing in the big picture. At the start of the game, the Leafs looked a little, I want to say too amped up. They didn't want to handle the hockey puck or didn't quite look like themselves. Is it tough to control the emotion that comes with that?
Well, it is for sure.
Yeah.
You're pretty wound up. You're fired up, ready to start the series. Game 1 is it's a pivotal game. You want to get off to a good start. They've got a number of guys there that have gone through some pretty devastating loss in the last couple of years, and they don't want that to happen again. And I'd rather have my group of players play with their foot on the gas rather than laying back. And they certainly had their foot on the long, skinny pedal last night for sure.
We can go as far back as we want, and we've all been in the Leaf alumni room, and we've all thought and fantasized about playoff runs in this city. But when you look at what it could do for maybe a Matthews and a Marner, they're really no different from us. I mean, they've got to be sitting there going, what would this city be like if we had some real success, even a championship?
Well, without a doubt. I don't know if they're, in the hockey world, I'm not sure if there'd be a place that would react, a city that would react like Toronto would. I think we saw it a little, I think we saw it when the Raptors won. I mean, I went downtown with my wife, and I could literally hardly walk on the streets. There was there had to be 1 million people down there, and I don't know how it could get even bigger than that. But I'm sure that that with this long wait that us Leaf fans have had over the last since '67, it's been too long, and this is a great opportunity for a great team to grab the bull by the horns and see if we can get this done. I mean, it would be something. There would be something that the new generation of Toronto Maple Leaf fans would certainly love. I think we've had too much adversity and too much heartfelt losses over the last couple of 3 or 4 decades that we don't need any more of this. And that's not to put the pressure on the team. I just think they have the talent level. They have a lot going for them. They really do. And if they stick to a game plan and not get too jacked up, not get too low, I think there could be some light at the end of the tunnel for us this year.
Well, I mean, obviously everyone in Toronto rooting for that. Did you see anything in game one that made you believe that, okay, this is like a real advantage they have over Tampa Bay? I just think that around the hockey world, most people still say, well, Tampa's been through this and Tampa's going to find and Tampa will be back. Is there more that you can take away from game one that makes you believe that maybe the Leafs do have some discernible advantage?
You know, there was something that happened in the game last night that, you know, it didn't happen because the Leafs wanted it to happen. It took place. And that was when Clifford took the 5-minute major and the Leafs were able to kill that penalty off. I wasn't in the building, but I could tell on the television that it was like hopping in there, and our fans were over the top by that kill. And I think that gave the Leafs a little bit of momentum going into you know, after that penalty was assessed. But I think that was one point that you know, as a player you can look down the bench and go, okay, our killers are doing the job. We got to get some offense going, and then, you know, Marner and Matthews and the boys, Tavares, they just it was time for them to shine. And, you know, almost like you're thanking the penalty killers for doing that for them, and then they knew it was time for them to take over. So, you know, just a little thing. It was actually not a little thing. It was a big thing because, you know, you take a 5-minute penalty in the first period like that, knowing that the Tampa Bay Lightning have an amazing power play. That was something that they came through on a real positive.
We're talking to Steve Thomas, former National Hockey Leaguer, former Toronto Maple Leaf, and former associate coach in Tampa Bay with John Cooper. So, you know, probably Coop better than most. What's he thinking going in Game 7, the adjustments he has to make, and maybe getting a little bit more juice out of his veteran players?
Well, you know what? I've never been a guy. I've been around a coach, and I've been with some of the greatest coaches that have ever coached, Al Arbour and Jacques Lemaire, and you know, guys like that. And you know, I've never known a coach that is able to, throughout the course of a game, able to adjust what he was doing. You know, they could start off a game, you know, using a certain forecheck and then change it midway through the game if it wasn't working, or the same can be said for a neutral zone or D-zone coverage, that sort of thing. He is able to adjust during the course of the game. Now, last night was a, you know, it was a tough game. You know, losing 5-0, game one, and the other team's building. But this is a team that has won 2 straight Stanley Cups. We certainly can't sit there and say, you know, Tampa Bay Lightning are going to go down 4 straight. We can't do that. I think we have to understand that they've been there before. They certainly know the
That's the
drop of death sound. Dunk. He's gone.
I'll call him back.
Well, I was right into listening to him talk about
what an answer he was given.
Cooper making these adjustments because having Randy Carlyle, and I think you used that, I don't know if you used it on a text or an article about having the right players on the ice at the right time or making adjustments like Steve was just talking about, but how huge those moments are and pivotal moments in a game to make those adjustments. Sometimes you lose track of how important key decisions are at the right time.
Yeah, and that's cool to hear that he's a guy that's willing to change plans in game, because you have to trust your team. You have to think you have the personnel that's smart enough to go, oh, you know, in our other forecheck I go here, but in this one I pull back. Like, you got to give your guys a lot of credit, because if you get on a different plan where one guy's in a 1-2-2 and one guy's in a 1-1-3.
What did you reference it to when I read your tweet? Was it Marner on the ice when Tampa Bay had a certain line out?
I don't know. I don't remember. I mean, I remember Randy talking about getting the right guys out there. I don't know what I did.
I'm the one with 6 concussions, by the way, not you.
Yeah, well,
I think you made a reference to the Leafs having their top line out against a Belmore or the.
It might not have been
Maroon.
Me there, chum. Maybe it is you in the end here. I don't know.
Hey, Stumpy. Thanks for coming back, buddy.
I apologize.
No problem. You want to just pick up on the Cooper thought, or?
Yeah. So like I was saying, that team has been there 2 years in a row, and they've built that team for the playoffs. And when you're sitting on the bench and you know that you've got a guy like that, like John Cooper at the helm, you know that he's going to do everything necessary for his team to get an advantage. Last night was an aberration for him. It was something that they didn't expect. I know that John in his press conference mentioned that he didn't think that his team played very well. This is a long series, as you know. 7-game series is there's a lot of peaks and valleys throughout the course of the series. This was a little bit of a valley for them, but I wouldn't count them out, and it'll still be a tough series going forward.
You were there, I believe, overlapping with some Kucherov years, if I'm not mistaken. Is that the case? Yeah. So can you tell me a little bit about him? Like, I see when things go wrong for him, he seems frustrated and I don't want to call it pouting, but can he be a dissident and a force for negativity with that team, or is he generally a positive guy?
No, you know what? He's a positive guy, but he expects the best every night. He's a true professional when it comes to playing the game at the professional level. And, there's a guy that, I'd have to wait on the ice after practice to go off, because he wouldn't come off the ice. He was a guy working on a shot. He was working on stick handling around cones, and he's the last guy on the ice. And, that's a guy that, has put the work in, and he expects, to benefit from that work that he's put in. Obviously, it's human nature to get down on yourself a little bit if things aren't going right. But he's the type of guy that I would watch out for, because that's just like a burr in his saddle, knowing that he just played a game like that.
Do you buy into any thought that like they're just weared down, or they're tired, or they're reaching for something that isn't there? The on and off switch we've seen in the last 6 weeks is there. They look like they're done. They looked great, and now you come out of game one looking like you did 5 weeks ago. If they lose this series, is it legit in your mind that they reached for something that wasn't there?
It's hard to say, Kip. Winning the Stanley Cup 2 years in a row, having shortened summers, not having really the rest that a lot of teams have had throughout the course of the year. It's hard to say, but there's a number of different players on that team that bring, a different brand than they had last year. And I think throughout the course of the year, those players have learned from the guys that have won the Cup what it takes to win hockey games. And I think a team like Tampa, I think they build from day one of training camp to get to the position they're in right now. So, I'm a Leaf fan. Believe me, I'm a Leaf fan through and through. I want to see the Leafs win, but I wouldn't doubt that the Tampa Bay Lightning, with the veteran leadership they have there and being there before, won't give Toronto a much better run for their money in Game 2. So the Toronto Maple Leafs can't let their guard down. They're playing with a lot of emotion. They're playing with a ton of passion. Their fans are helping them out. But at the same time, they've got to bring the same effort they did in Game 1 to Game 2, because that the Tampa Bay Lightning are going to bring much better effort than they did in Game 1. So that's a given for sure.
For sure. Yeah, and I wonder, are any of those guys particularly that you'd be familiar with particularly vocal in the room? Like, does anyone have to stand up in Tampa Bay? Does Victor Hedman have to say, come on, boys, or Stamkos or Kucherov? Or is this a group that once you've been through it, you just kind of know and trust that everyone knows their own job?
Yeah, I certainly think it's a trust thing, because I know that Stammer, he'll step up. He's not a raw guy. Palat's a quiet guy. Braden Point's pretty quiet. I think you hear some things probably along the way from a Perry, a guy like maybe Maroon, fourth line guys that do a pretty good job out there. McDonough, some of the veteran guys, a little bit more vocal players. But I think, the younger guys, the guys that haven't been there before, take cues from the guys that have been there in the last couple of years and had success, and understand this is how we have to play, not the way we played last night. And And if we're going to continue to play the way we played last night, then this whole season is going to be, for nothing.
Vasilevsky, another guy, we've seen him a lot better, but just no concern at all. I mentioned earlier, I don't think anybody agreed with me, but I would have thought that after 4-0, you pull him and you get him ready for game 2. But Cooper's got his workhorse in there. There doesn't seem to be any concern for him.
I wouldn't have any concern either. And being down 4-0, I don't know if there's another team in the league that could wipe that deficit out in one game or in a period. They did it a lot this season. And knowing that you have Vasilevsky in the net just gives them that little bit more confidence to know that, if we take a few chances, we'll know that Vasi will have our backs. And unfortunately last night for them, Vasi wasn't at his best, but he's one of the most competitive guys on that team. You can see it in his eyes every time the camera pans on him. And that guy just wants to win. And a true professional again. And they have a lot of guys like that. They have a lot of guys that take a lot of pride in what they're doing right now and want success. So this series is far from over, I can tell you that.
No question about that. All right, Steve, really appreciate your time, man. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, pleasure, guys. All the best.
Thanks so much.
Steve Thomas. Yeah. Vasilevsky's the least of Cooper's worries.
I agree. Hey, can I ask you a crucial question? When these guys we have on the show here, Brad May, Steve Thomas comes on the air, I'm going to thank them and say goodbye. I don't feel comfortable using their nicknames because I don't know them.
Oh.
I can't call him Stumpy. I don't know him. A fan can.
I don't.
It's not
I
right.
Really thought of that.
Like
I won't call him
calling him Mr. May. I'm struggling here. I'm dying.
So would you be more comfortable if I called him Steve and
No.
Brad?
No. These are your guys here. I'm telling you, it's just sometimes I'm like, how am I going to address
drop
this
a
guy?
Stumpy in. I'm giving you the credit card.
Okay.
As long as I give you the stamp, then those guys are okay with that.
No, I'm glad we had that talk.
Yes.
All right. On to the hockey.
Did I get Sammy's approval to call you JB?
Yeah, I think so.
Did I get any approval to call him Superfan Sammy?
No.
Just run
Maybe
with it.
my neighbor.
Just run with it.
I'm just watching Stumpy overtime goal, Game 5, 2000 against the Sens.
I think it was my neighbor Gibby that gave me the permission to call him Super Sammy.
Is it?
Gibby.
Neighbor Gibby?
Huh?
Yeah.
Is he your neighbor?
I had a neighbor Gibby, and we had a Super Sammy on our street.
Wow.
One thing that broke while we were doing that interview, Clifford news came out, 1-game suspension.
As we anticipated.
Yeah. I am curious to know if they would have played him in Game 2 if he had not been suspended. Do you want to hear what Keefe said about him before we move on from that? So here's what Keefe said, because anyway, just listen to Keefe.
I mean, listen, Cliff is a guy, I want Cliff in because of his physicality and what he brings, and that's part of it. He made a poor decision in that instance. But when I go back and I look at the last 20 games and I pull out the games where our fourth line has been the best, I'm talking about playing the game and defending and skating and forechecking, and our fourth line's been best when Kyle Clifford's in the lineup. That's a simple thing for me. So the physicality is part of it, but he's the way he's played and the way he's defended, he's made our fourth line better. It's the best it's been since he's come back up here and we've played him. We haven't played him every day. He's come in and out of the lineup, but when he's been in, he's brought a lot to us. Physicality is part of it, and he stepped over the line today, paid for it. But the reason I made the decision was partially with the physicality, but more so because of the other elements that he brings in terms of how he skates and how he defends.
To answer your question,
Yeah.
and just to listen to Sheldon kind of reiterate my answer to you, no question that he would have been in the lineup for Game 2.
Really?
And you would have just left the lineup as is.
Yeah.
That and just think also that if Clifford didn't get knocked out of the game, how much would that end of the game possibly look differently if he was on the ice?
Yep.
And maybe it doesn't get to Morgan Riley and Maroon.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll never know because he got thrown out of the game. But how do you really truly change a feel of success?
No,
if
you're
in
right.
fact he could have stayed there and provided that energy that Sheldon clearly just stated. To
Loved
me,
it. Sheldon's
to
all
over
over Cliffy there. That's some validation for his lineup
Spezza
decision.
will
That's what I heard.
see action, right?
Yes.
He'll see action. The question is now is it as early as game 2? And
Oh, yeah.
quite possibly, yeah. Where else do you go? No Clifford now. And we expect Bunting in for game 2, do we not?
We do, which makes for some interesting lineup decisions. Like if Bunting's in, you're moving Kerfoot from that spot. So here's the way I think it looks in game 2. Bunting, Matthews, Marner. We agree there. Mikheyev, Tavares, Kasha was their line last game. Worked out. So now you're looking at Engvall, Kerfoot, Nylander instead of Engvall, Kampf, Nylander. So Kampf is down on the 4th line. And then you've got to choose between Simmons, Spezza, Blackwell for the other spots there. So you're probably looking at Spezza, Kampf, Simmons, and Blackwell out. Simmons is really good, right? And he's the one guy who provides that sort of reinforcement.
Yeah, I like Blackwell.
You do?
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a sense of energy out of that kid.
Blackwell, Kampf, Simmons, and Spezza still can't get in? That's tough, man. That's tough. You got to get Spezza in there. Guy's been on PP2. He's been in the lineup all year. Like I like Blackwell too, but
I'd have to sleep on Spezza or Blackwell.
I agree. I actually think if they had no name bars and you were just picking a body to put in there, it'd be a lot easier to go with Blackwell. But I think you got to put Spezza in there at this point.
I just think Blackwell's. Yeah, I like him in that 4th line role and able to kind of move up if I need. We saw him on some PK, did we not?
The one thing I'll say is we're sitting here talking about the Leafs lineup and what made them so effective in game 1. And the universal thing between the three of us is skating. They skated circles around Tampa in game 1. Blackwell skates.
Yeah.
That's not a Spezza strength. You know, do you slow it down a little bit in the 4th line?
You don't
looks
lose
differently.
any energy off of him.
No. Spezza obviously can put one away that Blackwell can't. You know, he can handle the flank on power play 2. I don't know. But again, it's Jason Spezza. He's been a huge part of this thing. So tough spot.
All right. Want to move around the league a little bit?
Let's do it.
Get some thoughts on.
Oh, yeah, there are other games.
There are some other games. Before we go to Edmonton and LA, which was fantastic last night.
Really good, yeah.
Any thoughts on
Shouts to Hunter Ryan.
Carolina picking up where they left the Boston Bruins during the regular season, and that's outscoring them a gazillion to 1.
I think the total score now over all Carolina
24-2.
What is it?
24-2.
24-2. So they have just, to use the common Sammy expression, beat the brakes off Boston all year long. Although last night was a pretty close game. It was 2-1 or 3-1.
Badly, did they?
It was 3-1 with 10 minutes left. Then Trocheck banks one in from behind the goal line. They get an empty. But no, it was a close hockey game. Antti Ranta looked really good. But yeah, Carolina gonna make life difficult for the Bruins. Can't beat them 7 times in a row, can you?
Didn't see 1 second of that hockey game. It was across from the Leafs.
I watched
it was
the
tough.
replays and read
St.
everything I could.
St. Louis and Minnesota. I didn't see that one either, but I was enough to see Spurgeon get a fine for $5,000 cross-checking somebody behind the legs. So what was it like?
Everyone is more mad at this than you and I.
A cross-check to the Achilles.
That's how it's written by Sam.
Of Pavel Buchnevich.
Buchnevich? I got it right away. Pavel Buchnevich.
There you go.
Abrazizi. No, okay, so I really thought that was bad. Really bad.
Tried to hurt the guy.
It looked ugly, but it wasn't.
Clifford was a wires cross, pumped up crowd moment where he was trying to do a physical play and he did something dumb. This was when a guy was standing on the ground. He looked down at him, premeditated, and cross-checked him in the Achilles, tried to break his ankle.
It's not a typical hockey look. I'll give you that.
I personally think it's a joke that Kyle Clifford got suspended and Spurgeon didn't. I think Spurgeon deserves a game for that. That's a rotten
What are the
play.
potential risks for the two of them? One of them is
You're talking-
the guy
snapped
that
Achilles?
Clifford
You're not
with a
snapping an
cross-check.
Achilles
Yes,
on that.
Are you cross-checking him with a knife?
His foot was in a vulnerable position, and he came down as hard as he possibly could on the guy's foot and Achilles.
Oh my God! You'll never take George Peros' job ever. Ever.
You're right. Who would want it?
You know,
Who would
Clifford
want
could
it?
have broken a guy's neck or something. I don't know. I didn't love the Clifford play.
Clifford wasn't good either. Clifford
No.
deserved a game suspension, but
The
so did
Spurgeon
Spurgeon.
one was like, it's stupid. He shouldn't have done that. Here's a fine. I don't know.
Give me
All
a
right.
game.
Yeah.
That's their captain, though.
So
There's no
how
prior.
about that game, though? How about that game? David Perron catches 3 pucks on the backside on the power play and
Yes.
shoots them by. I thought I was watching the same replay. Truly, I watched I watched it all, and then I went back and
That's
saw the
just
third
like,
one. I was like, didn't I already see this?
It's like a good basketball player under the hoop.
Getting
eh?
the offensive boards.
Offensive boards.
It's also like some days when you're playing golf and you just snap it in the woods and it kicks back out. He
he
got
is-
every bounce he could.
Perron's sneaky good.
He's so good.
He's a good playoff
And
player.
you know what he's got that Kucherov grease to him like that. He's
Hate the tinted buys, though.
tinted
Right, too
visor.
cool for school?
I
or
don't know.
what?
I've just never liked the tinted visor.
I got to tell you, I threw one on in summer shinny. In summer shinny, the boys did not respond well.
Just too cool, eh?
You know, I thought it was a cool
You
looking
thought you were
visor.
like a
I
motorcycle
don't
guy.
really know what I just thought it looked cool, and boy,
Yeah.
not popular with
Yeah,
the
no.
fellas.
They're
Do you
coming
remember
after you.
NHL skate too. Like I'm like a junior kid putting on a tinted visor. That was not cool.
Remember the mirror visor that Ovi rocked in the World Juniors? That was a popular look in
I was
beer
like,
leagues for a while.
Sergei Fedorov in my day pulling out the white Nike skates.
But he was Sergei
Oh,
goddamn Fedorov.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was.
Buddy,
And that's the one thing he had going for him.
I used to walk to
Other than that, those
He
things
wasn't
were
a
cut.
junior hockey kid.
Those,
Yeah.
those laces are cut.
Right.
I used to walk to the Source for Sports in Owen Sound, and they had a pair of the white Nike skates, the Fedorov ones, and I would just go in there and just look at them. I would just be like, these are Garmin gear.
Why don't-
Shout
like-
out. I'd be like, these are the coolest goddamn skates on planet Earth.
Why don't you just go down to Grandin Toy and get yourself a bucket of liquid paint?
Yes, good point. Paint up my old tax. Yeah, that would have been great.
Liquid paper paint. Is that what they called it?
Yeah, whatever it was called. The same. Yeah.
Liquid
there it
paper.
is. Yeah. That would have been a hilarious look.
All right, Edmonton and the Oil.
Hold on. Somebody in the chat just said that he has a tinted visor because he has 8 concussions, you idiot. Is that true?
Well, yeah.
I don't know.
Well, yeah.
Is
do
that
you remember-
with
yeah,
Perron?
Yeah.
Is
well,
it the
then my
light?
apologies to him.
Well, do
There
you
go.
remember Matt Calvert?
You're
Well, you
so
were in a
insensitive,
I
Sammy.
know, I know, but I should clean that
If you
up.
had
That's a
known
bad
that,
one.
yeah.
That's a bad one.
Matt Calvert was wearing was it the blue or the pink visor for a while because of the lights were so bright and he had concussions, which to me, if you can't handle the lights in the arena, you shouldn't be on the ice where you can get hit. Just a thought.
And Eric Weinrich wore a pea yellow one for a little
You
while.
guys are so insensitive.
Yeah, the people are fired up. I feel bad. He had concussions. Anyways.
We didn't know.
Anyways.
Okay, we off now?
Yeah,
Or
we're good. We're good. Just want to make
have
sure.
we covered ourselves
Yeah.
on social media?
Yeah.
All right, good. Let's move on.
Yeah.
Edmonton seemed to me last night just a little behind LA. It was almost like they were chasing the whole game and yet looked like maybe even if it got to overtime, they'd find a way to take game one.
LA.
Edmonton.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I thought
You thought they catch up.
that
Yeah.
they could get there. The game's tied. They've been looking to me like they're chasing, but now there's a window where they could just win this thing. And then Mike Smith
Wish we could
Throws
swear on the show because what the
a-
was that?
pizza.
I mean, a large
Meat
stuffed crust.
lovers.
Does this guy
Meat
think he's
lovers.
Lindstrom in 98? Like, what are you doing?
Meat lovers, extra sausage up the middle.
And it's not for a lack of options. His D peeled off to the corners just as you tell your D.
What?
If the goalie has a puck behind the net, peel off. Don't go to him.
Wide open on the flanks. There's a screenshot of him standing there behind the net with 2 D-men standing there looking at him on the flanks.
And he goes, "No, I'm going to just gut this one. We're going to go get the game winner the other way while I'm standing in my own trapezoid."
That the no line's good.
Now,
boys.
Oh, man, yeah.
back in my day, guy that used to handle the puck pretty good, guy by the name of Marty Brodeur, we would spend a lot of time looking at where we needed to put the puck.
On dump ins.
Yes.
Yeah. To Mike Smith, ideally.
Where he could be vulnerable, where he's most comfortable, forehand, backhand, all of that. No question in my mind, LA did the same thing.
Think so?
With Mike Smith. 100%.
Yeah.
If this guy's got a history of throwing pizzas.
Oh, he's got a history.
Then just grab your video and start looking. And it gets to the point where you are dictating your forecheck.
Yeah.
And if you take away the walls and you bait him or tempt him, there's no doubt in my mind that was part of their playbook.
Stick to the outside until he looks ready to shoot it.
100%.
Yeah, no, that was ugly.
He was pretty good in that game leading up to that point.
And that's why he'll start game 2.
Yeah, he was pretty good. But
he's also been like the best goalie in the league since April 1st. He's been on fuego.
I like that Kings team, boys. They got some guys on their team. Like they will be not necessarily a force for soon, but they're going to be a team that's floating around the playoff picture
to put
for a while.
away. Kopitar and Danault down the gut. That's a pretty good one too, defensively.
And how many sat there and said, how much for Philip Danault?
A lot of people.
I still think the price they paid was wild. And then he ends up scoring 26 times this year.
And totally alleviating the pressure of sending out number 11 every time you needed a face-off win in his own zone.
Right. You free him up to play offense, right? You're like, all right, Danault can handle some of this responsibility. And now time for Leafs fans to plug their ears. You know who else is good?
Trevor Moore.
Yeah, that whole line. And Iafallo. They're really good together.
Yeah.
I like that line. And
they are fast.
You know who else is snapping it around out there? My son, Sean Dursey.
Sean Dursey.
He looks so good.
30 minutes a game.
But you would really never move him for the lily pad.
Well, you know what, though? This is the thing. It's gotten interesting because Liljegren, 20-some minutes last night for the Leafs.
I know. And limited mistakes.
I would say none. Real
right?
Good. Actually, he scored a goal that didn't count.
There's a couple moments where early in the game, I thought he had a couple shaky bobbles where he looked like he may be a little bit nervous, Liljegren, but then he figured it out right away and was one of the better guys on the ice for them. I thought he was excellent. So, yeah. But I love
What do we?
Was that in, by the way, his shot?
No. Wasn't in.
I don't know. I saw
Kipper
White.
thought it was in.
It wasn't
I saw White. But
here's where I'm supposed to say parallax.
What is that? What is that term used?
Is it parallax?
I don't.
It was it was floating in the air.
Parallelogram?
5-0. Maybe you could argue if it was 3-2 goal or something. I may be yelling more about it, but
yeah, you would be for sure.
Okay, so what do we got tonight? Pitt and Rangers, Washington, Florida, Nashville, Colorado, Dallas, and Calgary. Where do you want to start? You want to start about with Ovi and Ovi scheduled to play game 1, correct?
Ovi's in. Everyone on earth is in. Like
Ekblad is in.
Ekblad's in. Ovi's in. Bunting's back. Oh, you know who's not in? UC Saros out game 1 and 2 in that series against Colorado. So a night.
That's too bad.
It is.
Because he's fun to watch.
He is. I will let you in on a secret. In our awards voting, we vote for all-star teams at the end of the season for the professional hockey writers. I gave Saros one of my goaltender votes. Unbelievable season for Nashville. They relied on him so much, and he was so good. Big loss for them. Sorry, so Washington, Florida is where you wanted to start. Do you want to do picks here on these series?
Yeah, I can't remember if I did or not.
All right, Washington, Florida. Who do you like?
I took Florida in the series.
Yeah. I think they're going to dust the Capitals.
Yeah, I just think the goaltending if they had a decent goalie, the Caps, maybe a bit more of a conversation, but I'm going Cats in 5.
Vitek Vanacek is getting the start
Yes.
for Washington.
I got Florida in 6.
Cats in
Florida 5 for me. Sorry, Kyper was 6, Sammy was 5. All right. I'm going to write all this down. Dallas, Calgary. Anyone want to go more than 5 games? Think Dallas gets a couple of wins? I shouldn't skew maybe you're picking Dallas. I don't know.
I'm getting the brooms out on the Red Mile.
Sweep.
Calgary. I love Calgary. I'm bullish on Calgary. Calgary in 4.
Calgary in 4 for Sammy. I got Calgary in 5.
Like it's Robertson versus the big line in Calgary.
The line that was the best line in the NHL this year. Well, arguably the Toronto one.
I asked Robertson to go head to head there.
What else do you do? If you're Robertson, you're like, could you send the guys you spend $20 million on out there? But it's going to be Pavelski,
Dallas
Robertson,
is
and
just
Hintz.
prolonging the inevitable.
A couple of home gates for the Galliardis. Is that the
enough?
owner's name?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Is that enough, though, to think that you can keep Ben and Sagan and...
Could you possibly not keep them? Is it possible? Because if they could let someone else handle them, I'm sure they would.
All right, so 5 games for Calgary. We'll give Dallas a game.
Okay.
Colorado,
Colorado.
do they have any difficulty with no
Yeah.
Saros?
I think Nashville's going to make it tough on them, even with the goaltending situation.
But
as
you're not enough to pick Nashville.
not in a million years.
Well, then.
I'll take Colorado in 6,
Ooh.
which is giving Nashville a lot of credit, I think, because Daryl Sutter said earlier this year, he goes, whoever has to play Colorado in the first years is going to be a waste of 8 days.
Yes. Great line. One of my favorite clips he played.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Colorado in 6 as well, boy.
A waste of 8 days.
Hey,
Wow.
nice job. And shouts to me for remembering the line.
There we go.
You don't
said
suppose
6.
Dallas beats Calgary in 8 days?
No, I do not suppose that.
That would be
No.
that would be the ultimate
No.
karma.
That would be. Wouldn't that be funny? Calgary, Dallas. No, sorry, we're making the other team. Colorado, Nashville pick, Nick.
Colorado in 6.
Okay.
There's a flu, I think,
Unanimous
going through Colorado or something.
for you betting types. And last but not least, the toughest series to pick, I would guess, Pittsburgh, New York Rangers.
Every time you count Sid out,
I know.
he pulls you back in.
And meanwhile, Shesterkin waiting on the other side with a Vezina trophy in his future. It's a
5
tough call.
games, 6 games.
Whoa, for who?
Oh, I'll take the Rangers.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's confident. Is this the alumni over here? He knows where to
Oh,
grease the
yeah.
wheels.
Yeah, he was playing in a shinny skate with
Yeah.
I wanna
Dry
go
as
Wearing
back.
Rangers under
I
here
just want to
right
go
now.
back. I want to be invited back.
That's fair.
Rangers in 6 for Kyper.
This is all heart pick because I want to watch Sid play as much as possible. So I'm going to go Pens in 7.
I also have Pens in 7.
You do.
And
I
you know what
love
though?
Sid.
I gotta say, I don't like my pick. It's one of the ones I've made that I'm like, it doesn't seem like the intelligent.
I
pick.
agree. I don't think it's the right pick, but all
Favorites
heart.
are going down.
This
There's
is-
2
yeah.
favorites going down this
This is
round.
my Islanders' heart being like, I just cannot pick the Rangers. There's no way they're this good. It's some gross underlying numbers for a lot of the season. Betting stuff right now, what has my eye, the Toronto Maple Leafs Tampa Bay Lightning series has changed. So the Lightning are now such underdogs. They're plus 170 to win the series. So if you are a Leafs fan and you wanted to bet a little money on that, you could either have the Leafs get through and lose your money, which you would take, or if the Leafs lose, you get paid some money. That seems like a smart bet to me. The happiness hedge.
So what are you recommending?
I'm recommending you bet against your own team.
Which you did.
Oh, yeah.
I made a substantial amount of money on the Montreal Canadiens last year. Let's just say that.
Sammy and I were both heavy on that. We wanted Toronto to get through, so we were piling money on Montreal.
Game
and winning.
5, 6, and 7. I
You know,
paid the
can
rent
you
for a
say how
month.
much you...
Yeah, no.
No?
Some units.
Hundreds?
Let's say some units.
Hundreds of dollars.
Yeah.
You guys are like those gamblers that only tell me when you win, not when you lose.
Listen, I couldn't go through that again without compensation. And,
So you're covered. You
Yeah.
can lose.
and hey,
The
listen,
Leafs win or you win.
Yeah. It's emotional
and
insurance.
5, 6, 7. If they're going in this again, I will be betting on the other team again.
This is the way it works. Then you're emotionally covered.
Yeah,
Correct.
You can't believe in jinxes. You got to make the happiness hedge and just
We
get
have
yourself paid if your team
we
can
have
lose.
1-800 numbers if you guys need help.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That's another quick 2 hours,
It's over.
and we're back tomorrow
Playoff hockey, baby.
to tee up Game 2. Our thanks to Stanley Cup champion Brad May, who will remind us between now and when Lord Stanley's presented that this is what he would do to win the cup.
I'd fight my mom to win another Stanley Cup.
All right, then.
Stumpy Thomas, Steve Thomas, always a great get for the Real Kyper and Bourne show. All right, if you enjoyed it on the YouTube channel, hit the like button for us
Subscribe.
and subscribe. We're back tomorrow on Real Kyper and Bourne.